Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this amazing Friday morning, and it's the first day of March. You guys know exactly what that means. March Madness is coming up. So I didn't get to finish my last March Madness. I didn't get to finish my entire list of predictions for the teams that are going to represent each little division for March Madness. So I'm going to continue with that list in the first segment, seeing how big March Madness is and whatnot. And so that's going to be our first segment of the show today. Our second segment is going to be a little bit of an update with Joel Embiid and his injury status, because he recently had some comments about his injury and what he plans on doing for this season. And the third segment is going to be another recap of all the games that happened last night, as usual. We also have our fourth segment, which I will reveal in the third segment, so stay tuned for that. But before I begin with the show, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, to please remember to tip and to donate, and to use the link that is in the description to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcspodcast.net. Really helps the show. It makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, you guys, the viewers. So this link is gsmcspodcast.net. It is displayed below the ticker on every single show segment, as well as in the description. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and begin with our first segment, which is going to be about March Madness and my predictions for what teams I believe are going to represent each division going into the tournament. So just a little bit in case you guys weren't here from the last segment, we stopped at the MAAC. We were only able to get up to the MAAC and the MAC. So the team that's going to be representing the MAAC, the most likely team, according to rankings, is Fairfield. But obviously, since I'm from Quinnipiac University, I'm going to think that Quinnipiac has a solid chance of representing the MAAC in the NCAA tournament. Quinnipiac has the best record in the MAAC right now, and they beat Fairfield in Fairfield's home court. Granted, they beat Quinnipiac in Quinnipiac's home court, so it's like they traded. But I still think that, seeing as Quinnipiac is the number one seed, I still think they have the best odds of representing the MAAC in the NCAA tournament. But regardless, if it's not going to be Quinnipiac, I hope it is. It's going to be Fairfield, without a doubt. The MAAC, the Akron Zips have the best chance of representing the MAAC. They have a 20-8 record and are 12-3, and obviously, usually 9 times out of 10, the best team in the division and the team that has had history of making the NCAA tournament before is going to make the NCAA tournament again. We always see the same teams over and over again representing the same divisions. It's almost guaranteed half the time. But the Zips have a top 100 defense, and they only allow 65 points per game on 30% shooting from three as well. So that defense is going to be something that definitely elevates this team in the NCAA tournament and going into their little conference tournament to win the MAC. And now let's move on to the other teams, because there's a lot of them. The MEAC team that's going to represent the MEAC, the best odds to represent them, the Norfolk State Spartans, 19-9 and 9-2 in the MEAC. So Spartans, they're 9-1 in their last 10 games, and this is going to be their third NCAA tournament appearance, in the past 4 years, assuming they end up making it. But again, they have the best chance of making it because they've been the best. They've been good for a long time. They also had this transfer student, Jamari Thomas. Excuse me, that was bad English. And he's led the team in scoring with 17.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists, and 2 steals as well. So North Carolina Central, it'll definitely be, North Carolina Central is going to be that team's toughest competition of representing, that's going to be the only team that stops them from representing the MEAC this year. Now, Missouri Valley, the MVC, the Drake Bulldogs are 24-6 and 15-4, and look, according to this, they're the best, well, not the best team, but they are the team that has the most likely odds to represent the MVC. So there's an outside chance that the MVC will be a two-bid league this year, where Indiana State and Drake both looked at favorable from a metric standpoint, and both teams won at home in their 2 regular season matchups. And anything but a third meeting in the title game would probably represent a huge upset for both teams, seeing as how they're tied in the series. So the Bulldogs have the MVC's best player in Tucker DeVries. Again, forgive me if I completely botched that name. He averages 21 points, almost 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. And that's the team that I believe is going to represent the MVC. The NEC, so the Northeast Division, it's going to be the Merrimack Warriors. Now, the Warriors, they won the D2 national title in 2018 and 2019, and then they moved up to D1, and they're now eligible for the NCAA tournament for the first time this year, following the 4-year waiting period after reclassification. And with a 9-game winning streak heading into Thursday's game against Dickinson, momentum is definitely on their side, and momentum is probably going to carry over into their little NEC tournament. Now, Ohio Valley, the OVC, the Little Rock Trojans, now they have the best chance of representing their division in the NCAA tournament. But there's 3 different teams that sort of that have the best chance. So, the team that I just mentioned, Ohio Valley, Morehead State, and Tennessee Martin. Those teams, those are the big 3. Those are that's the 3-headed monster in that division. Those 3 teams are really good, and all of them are sitting at 12-4 in conference play. So they all have the exact same record in their conference. And the last time the Trojans made the tournament was in 2015-2016 when they finished 30-5. So they've won 7 in a row with home wins over both Morehead State and Tennessee Martin during that time. And so I believe that they have the best chances of representing the OVC. Now we move on to some more of the mid-majors. The Patriot Division, the Colgate Raiders have the best chance of representing their team and from the Patriot Division. They are 21-9 overall and 15-2, and the Raiders have made the NCAA tournament 4 times in the past 5 years, and they are obviously the best team in the Patriot Division once again. And this year's team, this year they're built on defense, allowing just 63.5 points per game, while limiting opponents to 40% shooting from the field. And you guys know how I feel about defense. I feel like teams that value defense and take defense seriously have a much greater advantage in the postseason, where offenses might not be as consistent, and their defense will be enough to sort of elevate the team and give them a lot more chances of winning the game in the end. Because, again, you can't necessarily control... You can control how good, your offense is. You can control, how open your players can get and, with the plays that you run. But there's no guarantee that the players are going to hit the shot. It's much more guaranteed that defenders can stay in the person's face and continue to disrupt opponents on the defensive side. That is consistent. Defense is extremely consistent and much more consistent than compared to offense. And because of how consistent defense is, I feel like it's much more reliable to sort of have that to fall back on. But that's me. Now, obviously, like the rest of the league and the rest, like a lot of the fans, they in the NBA, they won't agree with that because it's like, oh, you need offense, you need to continue to score, all that stuff. Well, first of all, you got to be able to hit that shot, and if you're not hitting your shots and your defense is trash, or like not trash, but terrible, then you're not really helping your team, because anything can happen. Like no one expected Houston to miss 27 straight threes in the Western Conference Finals. No one expected that. And because they didn't really have much to stop Golden State, they couldn't end up winning the game. Now, for the Southern Division, the Samford Bulldogs, they have the best chance of representing their team. 25-5 in the regular season, 14-3 in the Southern Division. And the last time Samford made the NCAA tournament was all the way back in 2000 as a member of the Trans-America Athletic Conference, which is now known as the Atlantic Sun. And they've already secured their third straight 20-win season. And since season opening, like losing to Purdue and VCU, they've gone 25-3 while scoring 80 or more points on 18 different occasions. So they definitely have a very high-powered offense, and they have the momentum on their side. And I mentioned previously about the momentum, and it's like teams that have momentum can carry that over into the NCAA tournament and achieve great things. Just look at St. Peter's. Now, for the Southland Division, we have the McNeese State Cowboys. Already, I don't like that team just because they have the name Cowboys. And 25-3, 14-1 in Southland Division, and they've been one of like the best mid-major teams in the country this year. And in their first season under former LSU coach Will Wade and TCU transfer Shada Wells, 17 points per game and 4 assists per game, by the way. He's been the star running the offense, while the defense ranks 4th in the nation with 61 points allowed per game. They rank top 80 in KenPom's offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. So for offense, they rank number 79, and for defense, they rank number 67. And they're a very well-rounded group. And they like defense, as I mentioned previously. So the SWAC, the SWAC division, the Grambling Tigers, while their record on paper, overall is not really that good, they're 14-13, they do have the best record in the SWAC division with 11-3. So they played a really difficult schedule. They had to play Iowa State, Dayton, Washington State, Florida, Drake, and Colorado. And just off the first rip, and they started 2-10. So, and their only victories were coming against non-D1 opponents. So that seemingly prepared them well for conference play, and they've been incredible in their conference. So while I don't think they're going to really do much in the NCAA tournament, they're the best team in their conference. As sad as it is to say. Now, Summit, the Summit Division, South Dakota State Jackrabbits, they're 17-12 overall, and they're 10-4 in Summit. So they're no strangers to the NCAA tournament. They've made it 6 times in the last 12 years, and they close out the regular season with road games against North Dakota and North Dakota State. So they already played North Dakota yesterday, and they're going to play North Dakota. They're going to play North Dakota State tomorrow. So those teams, they currently sit 2nd and 3rd in the conference standings. Those 2 teams that I just mentioned. So their status as front runners will be put to the test, and we'll see exactly whether or not they can maintain that. That number 1 spot going into the NCAA tournament. Not going into the NCAA tournament, but going into their inter-conference tournament. Now, the Sun Belt division, the Appalachian State Mountaineers, I think they have the best chance of representing the Sun Belt in the NCAA tournament. Now, James Madison, they opened the season with a win over what was then the number 4 ranked team, Michigan State, before spending 8 weeks in the AP poll, and they still have an outside shot for an at-large bid if they don't win the Sun Belt tournament. The team standing in their way is the Appalachian State, which won both regular season matchups to give the Dukes 2 of their 3 conference losses, so they were able to beat Duke twice. And the Mountaineers are 14-1 in their past 15 games. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with my English today? But now let's move on to the WAC before we run out of time. The WAC, the Grand Canyon Antelopes, they have the best chance of representing the WAC. 24-4 overall, 14-3 in their conference. Now, they benefit greatly from the fact that Tarleton State, which is the second best team in the conference, is not yet eligible for the NCAA tournament in their 4th season at the D1 level. So they're not eligible to make the NCAA tournament, unfortunately. And this leaves a favorable path to a 3rd tournament bid in the past 4 years for the Antelopes team. And they could receive some at-large consideration thanks to a strong net ranking of number 57, and a nice quad 1 win over San Diego State. The WCC, now St. Mary Gales, I think they have the best chance of representing their team in the NCAA tournament. The Gales have not lost since December 23rd and are currently projected for the number 6 seed on the latest bracket matrix. And they won at Gonzaga earlier this month, but still have to face their rival at home in the regular season finale. The Zags might need the automatic bid to make the NCAA tournament field this year, so St. Mary's will be looking to make sure its rival stays on that bubble. We'll see how it goes. Now, unfortunately, once again, we are out of time for this segment. There are a lot of teams to cover for college, so those were all the teams that I was able to fit. I'll probably cover more of the teams and cover the AAC and all these other conferences a little bit next week as we continue going deeper and deeper into March Madness. But with that, we're out of time for the first segment, and so that means we have to go on to the second segment, which is going to put the shift back into NBA basketball, where we talk about Joel Embiid and his injury status, what he wants to do with his injury, what is expected of him, or what he's expecting of himself, and what I think the Sixers should do. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. My bad for that little delay. I was trying to turn on my microphone and it wasn't working for a second, but it's whatever. But regardless, we're going to go into the second segment, which is going to be talking about Joel Embiid's injury and exactly what he's expected going into the season and well, not going into the season, but to finish this season, pardon me. and what I think the Sixers should do with him and like what he thinks like should be done. But before I begin with that, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, excuse me real quick, to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcpodcast.net. Helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, you guys, the viewers. So once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. It gets your comments recognized, so that way they go at the top of my screen. But with that out of the way, let us go right ahead and get into the second segment of the show, which is going to be about Joel Embiid and his injury update. And I'm just quickly pulling up the quote on exactly like what he said and like what he wants going into this season. And he recently said that Joel Embiid hopes to come back this season. Like he wants to recover as quickly as possible and continue his historic NBA season and help the Sixers and going into the playoffs, obviously, and whatnot. But do I think that's the best move for Joel Embiid? Do I think that the Sixers should try to force him to come? Well, not really force him to come back because he wants to come back. But do I think that the Sixers should help him and like speed up the recovery and whatnot and try to get him back? So that's a little bit complicated. Like I'm stuck in the middle with that because on one end, I really, really despise it when players sit out for absolutely no reason. And not really no reason, but like for minor injuries. Because like I grew up watching Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant would play through broken finger. He'd play through sore left knee. He'd play through anything until he couldn't walk. And going from that to players who will literally sit out because their right shoulder is a little bit sore, I think it's a little bit weak, and I really don't agree with it. So I like how Embiid, like, he wants to hurry up and come back from his injury because it, like, helps his team win. And, like, if you just sit him out for the rest of the season, it sort of, like, shows a losing attitude, and which might sour Joel Embiid's, like, opinions on the organization. However, at the same time, Joel Embiid is not one of those players that's really had a good history with injuries, especially in the postseason. Joel Embiid, the only healthy postseason that Joel Embiid has participated in is the bubble in 2020. And that was only 4 games. So he was only able to stay healthy for 4 straight games. And like they got swept in that series. So it didn't really end up mattering much because like Joel Embiid was on the lineup, right? But like they still got swept. So like, but that's another story. But again, like trying to rush Joel Embiid back from like this type of injury that's this severe, I think it's like, considering his history with injuries, it might not be the right idea to rush him back. Like, he's always injured. A lot of people like to call Anthony Davis like the glass man, and like because he's made out of glass, but that energy should shift to Joel Embiid completely. Like, honestly, like he's always injured in the postseason, always injured. And now you're trying to force him back from a major injury, and you expect him to like be all right going into the postseason. Like, really? And personally, I don't think the Sixers should rush him. I think they should just stop Embiid for this entire season. Like, he needs his time to recover, and they need to not force anything with Joel Embiid, because if he comes back and he gets hurt in the postseason, that might be a career-ending injury that he's going to put himself through, which not only affects his NBA career, but now it's also going to affect his Olympic career, seeing as how he was just confirmed as one of the names that's going to be on Team USA. But especially, like, if the Sixers were the 1 seed before Joel Embiid got hurt, then yes, I would 100% understand trying to get Joel Embiid in the lineup as quickly as possible. But the Sixers, they weren't even with Joel Embiid, they were not in anyone's mind. Like, in terms of the teams that were going to make the Eastern Conference Finals, the Sixers aren't one of them. Nobody was expecting. I mean, granted, like, a lot of analysts, like, they were expecting Joel Embiid to, like, finally make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I wasn't one of those people. So we're going to talk about my opinion. Like, I wasn't one of those people that thought the Sixers were going to make it far in the postseason to begin with. I personally, like, even with Joel Embiid, I think that they're just a second-round team. And they just can't make it far. I don't know what it is. It's just they fall short every single time. And it's really disturbing every time with Embiid. And it's really disturbing because it's like he's so good, but he can't get over that hump. So I don't have faith in them making the Eastern Conference Finals with Embiid. Like, even if Joel Embiid was healthy now, I don't think they would make the Eastern Conference Finals. Because the Boston Celtics, they are already by far the best team in the NBA right now. Like, right now, and the gap between the gap in the 1 seed with the Eastern Conference, I've talked about this before, is so drastic. Like, it's a 7-game difference. And with that in mind, and the fact that every single postseason the Celtics have beaten the Sixers, I really don't think that the Sixers have much of a chance of making an Eastern Conference Finals appearance with Embiid or without Embiid. So, with that in mind, bringing him back, or like bringing him into this, like, back from injury, I really just feel like they're rushing it and they're wasting, like, they could waste an opportunity. Not really waste an opportunity, but like they're just rushing him into a lost season, I guess you could say. Yeah, they're rushing him into a season that's already lost. And from that standpoint, I think that's not the right move. However, as an organization, you have to ensure that your players are happy, right? So if Joel Embiid wants to come back from this injury and he feels like he's good enough to come back and play, I feel like the Sixers should listen to him. Because if they don't listen to him, then his opinions on the organization are already sour as it is, and he's already said that, like, he would consider not re-signing with the Sixers if, like, things don't end up panning out the way he sees them. And with that in mind, it's like, if they decide to not play him at all for the rest of the season, he might get a little bit upset at that. And it might sour his relationship with the organization. And you do not want that to happen. You do not want your best player to have a bad relationship with the organization, especially now when you're not going to have him under contract in a few years, or like really soon. So if they don't keep him happy, then we might see Joel Embiid leave the Sixers. And personally, I really think that he should leave the Sixers anyway. Daryl Morey there's actually, now that I think about it, before I say this, like, a lot of NBA players are saying that Daryl Morey is a liar, and that because he's a liar, like, obviously, like, you don't want a GM for like, as a liar on your organization, obviously. And what I mean by him being a liar, like, James Harden said that he lied to him about what I believe he lied to him about was not giving him the supermax that he wanted on the Sixers. He lied to Patrick Beverley, saying that he wasn't going to trade Beverley, and he ended up trading Beverley over to the Bucks. And now recently, he lied to Chris Paul. Like, Chris Paul has just come out saying that he wasn't going to trade, like, on Houston, he wasn't going to trade Chris Paul to OKC. And look what happens. He ends up trading Chris Paul to OKC. And Daryl Morey's response to that is, it all happened so fast. We have someone in the chat, Crucial PG. Hey, look who's back. Daryl Liar Morey. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that because, like, I can't, but NBA players are saying that about him. So it's not a really good look that, like, 3 players are coming out now saying that Daryl Morey is a liar. So with that in mind, that might, like, already, like, the organization is, like, already a little questionable just because of Daryl Morey as the GM. And if the rest of the organization decides to, like, just completely bench Embiid for the entire season, like, because that's what I think the best move is. But if Joel Embiid wants to play, like, I'd say, like, all right, let him play, because we don't really have that many players that would, like, want to come back from a serious injury like that. So if he wants to come back and he feels like he can help the Sixers win, I think they should listen to him, because if they don't, he might threaten to leave them going into the next season. And then if you're the Sixers, where do you go from there? Because, like, the Sixers are already a team that is, like, stuck in the middle, because it's like they always do well in the regular season, but when it goes into the playoffs, they always don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Always. And I don't understand why sometimes, because they have all the tools and they have what they need to make it out, but they just don't. And it's a little bit frustrating seeing, like, someone as talented as Joel Embiid not make it far into the playoffs and, like, literally be the only MVP in NBA history to not make an Eastern Conference Finals. Like, that is ridiculous, in my opinion. And, like, obviously he needs to fix that on his resume, and he needs to fix that by playing. So, but with that, actually, before I be done, all right, Crucial PG said in the chat, Doc Rivers, and what he means by that is that, like, the reason why, like, the last previous years that the Sixers weren't making it far was because of Doc Rivers as their head coach. And Doc Rivers, like, and you guys know my opinions on Doc Rivers. He is notorious for, like, for blowing leads, and in the playoffs, in the big games when it matters most, he's blown the most 3-1 leads out of any coach in NBA history. And I believe he's blown the most 2-0 leads as well, and 3-2 series leads as well. So obviously with that reputation as the coach, it doesn't really help the Sixers. But at the same time, again, the Sixers weren't really doing much, like, before they got Doc Rivers. Like, in the bubble, Doc Rivers wasn't their head coach, and they still got swept by the Boston Celtics. So it's not entirely Doc Rivers' fault. Even though, yes, he did play a big part in blowing those games, but, he did play a big part in not doing enough, like, adjustments for, like, for these games. And part of it is Ben Simmons being on the team. But with that, we're out of time for this second segment. So join me for the third segment as I give a quick recap of all of the games that went down last night. And if we do have time, I'll talk about some of the games that are going to happen tonight going into the weekend. So I will be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And we are on the third segment of the show. And in this third segment, we are going to do a quick recap of all of the games that happened from last night. And there were a lot of big stories that came out of these games. But you guys know exactly what game I'm going to talk about first. We're talking about the GOAT, LeBron James, and winning against, obviously, like, one of the worst teams in the NBA. But it doesn't matter. A win is a win is a win is a win. They beat the Washington Wizards. So now the Wizards are 9-50, which is absolutely horrible, and it's honestly hilarious because Kyle Kuzma, like I've said this previously, but Kyle Kuzma tweeted, when the Boston Celtics were losing by 20 to the Detroit Pistons, Kyle Kuzma tweeted, right now it's just don't be that team, along the line, something like that, referencing how, like, don't lose to the Pistons, or, like, don't be as bad as the Pistons. But the Wizards, they have the exact same record as the Pistons, and they honestly have an argument for being worse than the Pistons right now. But with that in mind, they were able to take the Lakers to overtime, where the Lakers only won by 3 points. Now, I said this in the last segment, Jordan Poole was somehow miraculously going to learn how to shoot in this game. And I was right. He came off the bench and he ended up scoring 34 points. So, of course, it's against the Lakers. He just remembers how to shoot. And what did he shoot? I'm just going to look at it. He shot 13 of 26, so obviously, like, he's a shot chucker. Like, he's the shot chucker of the team. And he's been playing a lot better coming off of the bench for the Wizards. So maybe that's his role. Maybe he's a sixth man, and that's what teams should, like, keep him as. Like, they shouldn't keep him as a starter. They should keep him as a sixth man. So other notable players that played well, Marvin Bagley, he ended the game with 23 points, 11 of 14. Corey Kispert ended the game with 20 points, 8 of 15. Kyle Kuzma also ended with 20 points, 7 for 16. And Denny Avdija, again forgive me if I botched that last name, ended the game with 15 points. So there was a lot of scoring coming in from Washington going into this game. And granted, I mean, if you're someone like Jordan Poole, if you take that many shots, then yeah, usually you're expected to drop a lot of points. But it's not like the Lakers didn't have a response in this game. Anthony Davis ended the game with 40 points and 15 rebounds. Finally, he does something on the squad. Like, finally, he has a dominant performance. And LeBron James, obviously, greatest basketball player ever. I'm going to say this every time he's brought up. The GOAT, end of story. 31 points and 9 assists. LeBron and Anthony Davis combined for 71 points. And that's almost half of the Lakers' points, like total points in this game. And they need this production from Anthony Davis. They need this type of dominance from him if they're expected to make it far in the postseason. And LeBron is obviously going to have to, like, be LeBron, like, every single game. But Anthony Davis also has to come in and help as well. D'Angelo Russell, ever since he's been in trade rumors, he's been absolutely phenomenal in terms of shooting the ball in the spot up and in terms of creating offense for the team. He played 44 minutes this game, and a lot of players played a lot of minutes in this game. So with that in mind, like, the substitutions are a little bit iffy because, again, like, LeBron playing 39 minutes, the oldest player in the NBA, like, that's not really, I personally don't really like that, just because it's like, what if he gets hurt? I don't want to say that because, like, I don't want LeBron to get hurt, obviously, but what happens if he does? And with all these minutes that, like, you're putting on him and whatnot. But other than LeBron, AD, and D'Lo, there wasn't really much that the Lakers team had going for them on the offensive side of the ball in this game. And that's a common problem that LeBron's teams have. It's like that he'll have that other star player be consistent, right? But then the rest of the team behind him is just not consistent enough. And a lot of people forget that it's not just a 2-man or a 3-man show or a 1-man show in the NBA. It's a whole 15-man roster. And if you want success, you need that roster to be able to compete and to be able to go against all these other teams and have a fighting chance, if you will. And a lot of people say that, oh, LeBron has had help. No, he hasn't. One other all-star player on the team, or like 2 other all-star players on the team. That is help, yes, but that's not really like that's not all the help that, like, ensures a title. Like, for example, when people say like Michael Jordan, he had help. a lot of people just bring up Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman as their help, when in reality, there were so many other role players that ended up playing a part. Like, for example, Paxton in Game 5. He was consistent in hitting a lot of jump shots when the defense was focused on Michael Jordan. Steve Kerr, another player that ended up hitting a clutch shot for MJ in his career. Horace Grant, a very, very good power forward that ended up, I believe he ended up three-peating again with the Los Angeles Lakers after three-peating with the Chicago Bulls, like with Kobe and Shaq. And what other players out? Obviously, like Tony Kukoc. Again, all of these players, like, they've helped. They're considered as help, but like a lot of people only look at the star players, and I'm like, the star players don't necessarily make up a 15-man roster. So when people say that LeBron didn't have help, we aren't talking about the star player that he had. We're talking about the rest of the team that failed to show up. But I digress, and like I went on a little rant with LeBron. You guys know how I feel about LeBron. But let's continue on with these with the rest of the games that went down. Another popular game that went down was the San Antonio Spurs going up against the Thunder. The San Antonio Spurs ended up beating the OKC. So right now, the OKC have lost to two of the worst teams in the NBA. Two of the worst teams in the NBA they've lost to this season. That is not ideal for a team that's like expected to meet like great heights going into like the postseason. So with that in mind, the thought that this team is going to be one and done in the playoffs is even stronger in my mind. And I think if the Lakers, like if they maintain like the 7th seed and like the OKC, like they maintain the 2nd seed, I could totally see the Lakers just completely bouncing OKC from the first round. I can totally see that happening. And with how they've played, it's not Shai that's the problem. It's the rest of the team and their overall consistency that's the problem. Shai, I don't know what it is. Shai is probably like the most consistent basketball player in the entire NBA. He drops the exact same stat line every single night. It's like he always ends the game with like 31 or 32 points. Always. And Chet Holmgren in this game, he had 23 points. And Jalen Williams ended the game with 26 points. And other than that, there was not really much for the team going on the offensive side of the ball. They didn't really have much going for them. And this win for the Spurs, not only did the Spurs end up winning, but Victor Wembanyama ended up completely outplaying Chet Holmgren in this game. Completely outplaying Chet in this game. He ended the game with 28 points and 13 rebounds and 7 assists, 2 steals, and 5 blocks. And one of those blocks came against Chet himself on a jump shot. He blocked Chet on a jump shot. So, and that clip was going viral all over the internet. And with that in mind, I think this game, it completely sealed Rookie of the Year. Like, if there was any doubt that Victor Wembanyama was going to win it, now it's gone. Like, there's absolutely zero argument for Chet Holmgren to getting this award now. Victor Wembanyama is clear-cut Rookie of the Year. He's been clear-cut Rookie of the Year, but it's just a lot of the fans are like they would rather have winning. And Shai Gilgeous is an MVP caliber player. He's top 2. They're not winning because of Chet Holmgren. They're winning because they have a great team. And the other argument is Chet's efficiency. Yeah, well, obviously you're going to be a lot more efficient when you don't take as much shots as Victor, and when your team sets you up with great looks and you have a great point guard to set you up with those looks. Like, it's almost like, of course he's going to end up being more efficient. But right now there's absolutely zero argument for Victor Wembanyama not winning Rookie of the Year. I think he should be the unanimous Rookie of the Year this year. Like, no one should vote for Chet whatsoever. And we also have another game. We also have some more games that went down. The Milwaukee Bucks ended up playing the Charlotte Hornets, and again, obviously, like, the Bucks beat them. The Bucks have really been destroying the Hornets, and it makes sense. But so far, it looks like the Bucks have sort of found their stride. in these last few games after the All-Star break, they've let's see. I'm just looking at their schedule real quick. So from February 3rd, they've beaten the Mavs, they lost to the Jazz, they lost to the Suns, right? And then they lost to the Timberwolves. That was obviously like something that like it was around the tough time like for the Bucks, because like, you know, Doc needed to adjust. They ended up beating the Hornets on like the 9th, and then they beat the Nuggets, and they lost to that Heat team, unfortunately. But ever since coming out of the All-Star break, they beat the Bucks. They beat the Nuggets. Why do I keep saying they beat the Bucks? My apologies for that. They lost to the Heat, but they lost to the Grizzlies, but they ended up beating the Timberwolves. Coming out of All-Star break, they ended up beating the Timberwolves, beating the Sixers. Obviously, like the Sixers, they didn't have him beat. Beating the Hornets, and then beating the Hornets again. So they're on a 4-game winning streak. I accidentally named off like a lot of the teams that they lost to before they've been on their stride. That's my bad. But they beat the Timberwolves, best team in the West. Coming out of All-Star break, they have not lost a game, and they're expected to play the Chicago Bulls later today at 10 o'clock. So I'm probably going to tune into that game. But so far, this Bucks, it sort of seems like they're going in the right direction in terms of playing winning basketball with Doc Rivers. Now, in the stat sheet, there weren't really like that many outstanding performances in the stat sheet. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 24 and 10. Damian Lillard, 17 points. And Malik Beasley, 19 points. And like really, that's really like the only highlight on the offense for these guys in this game. And really not much needed to say. Like, Milwaukee has always they've beaten Charlotte like every single time. So no real surprises there. Another big game that ended up going down, the Denver Nuggets ended up matching up against the Miami Heat, and the Nuggets ended up winning 103-97. Michael Porter Jr. ended up having a great game, ending with 30 points. Jokic ended with 18, 11, and 7. Oh, and Porter also had 11 rebounds as well. And Jamal Murray, he only played 14 minutes in this game, but again, they didn't really need him in this game, as the team was able to sort of beat this Miami Heat team without Nikola Jokic needing to go off. And Nikola Jokic, for once, he shot really inefficiently in this game. He went 6 for 15 from the field, and like that is very, very rare for Jokic, for him to not be super consistent and hyper efficient. So, and this is the Heat with Jimmy Butler that they were able to beat. So the fact that they were able to win with Jimmy Butler on the other team definitely says a lot. He played 40 minutes and only had 21 points. Like, obviously, you guys know my opinions with Jimmy Butler, but I'll say them again. I think playoff Jimmy's a myth. He's only there for the first round of the playoffs, and that's it. But that's just my personal opinion. We'll see how this goes in the playoffs. And Bam Adebayo, he ended the game with 22 points. And Terry Rozier ended the game with 19 points. Those were the only real positives for the offense on the Miami Heat, as they got completely outplayed by the Denver Nuggets, and Michael Porter Jr. completely shot them out of the game. And there wasn't really much that needs to be said. And we're running out of time, so the next important game that ended up happening was these two weren't really that much important games now that I think about it. So Phoenix, the Phoenix Suns ended up beating the Houston Rockets by 5 points, 110-105. Devin Booker ended the game with 35 points. Kevin Durant ended the game with 24. Still no Bradley Beal in the lineup, and obviously I'm pretty sure he's injured again. And so far, this team is starting to look like a repeat of the Brooklyn Nets Big Three, and it might be seen as one of the worst moves it might be seen as a bad move to trade Bradley Beal onto the roster, but we'll see how it goes. But so far, again, I had Bradley Beal as one of my more disappointing players this season. So, if they can turn it around in the playoffs, then, all power to them. But, again, I don't really see that happening. And Kevin Durant shot pretty inefficiently this game, 8 for 19. So did Devin Booker, 13 of 27. But they also were the leading scorers, so it's you can't really say much. And those were all the games that ended up happening last night. I mean, the Orlando Magic, they played against Utah, but Utah right now is in the middle of tanking. So obviously the Orlando Magic were going to end up winning this game. It was pretty close, obviously. Paolo Banchero, he had 29, 9, and 6. Great game from him. And the Jazz, they didn't really have that many notable scores. Everybody in the starting lineup ended with double digits and close to 20 points. So it was relatively even, but still, like, Utah Jazz, they're not in the spot that to compete in the Western Conference. So not really that much of a big game, but excuse me. But with that, we are out of time for in this third segment. So tune in for the fourth segment where I talk about CJ Stroud and his starting lineup. CJ Stroud recently he was, if you guys didn't know, he was in the Celebrity Game, and he just gave out a list on who his starting lineup is, like his all-time starting lineup. So I will give my opinions on that and probably give my all-time starting lineup. So I will see you after this short break. And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And today, we are going to, in this fourth segment, we're going to talk about CJ Stroud's all-time starting five and give my opinions on that list, and as well give my starting five and why I think my starting five is by far the best starting five ever assembled. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into CJ Stroud's starting five. Actually, hold on a minute. Before I do that, I actually have an update. So Steph Curry and Ayesha Curry, they're apparently expecting a fourth child. So, I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there just because, like, I'm going to bring up Steph anyway. But, yeah, they're expecting another child. The update just came in. A tweet just went out, and I happened to look at it, and that's what it said. So that's what's going on with Steph and his scenario and his situation. But let's go ahead and talk about CJ Stroud and his lineup and what I think about it and exactly like where it stands. So if you guys don't know who CJ Stroud is, he participated in the Celebrity Game in All-Star Weekend. He's a quarterback. He's a rookie quarterback for the Houston Texans, and he's just came off as having one of the best rookie seasons for a quarterback that I've seen, like in a while. And he ended up winning a playoff game as well. So obviously, like, he had a great season. He's a great football player, and he's also a baller. Like, he could also play ball. So his starting lineup, I'm just going to like pull it up real quick. And his starting lineup consists of Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, Dirk Nowitzki, and Shaq. So this starting lineup it's a little bit odd because, like, he picked the second best players at every single position. Like, for example, at point guard, Steph Curry, the best point guard of all time is, like, for a lot of people, is Magic Johnson. And Well, I don't really disagree with having Steph Curry like in the lineup because of his shooting. A lot of people might disagree just because of like his defense. And like I understand that. Like Steph Curry's defense is not as reliable as someone who's tall as Magic Johnson. Even though Magic didn't really have that as good of a defense as like a lot of people say that he has. They overhype Magic and his defense. But regardless, like well, there's the argument that Steph Curry isn't even the best point guard in NBA history. So that's one. Two, Kobe Bryant. You guys know that I have I really like Kobe Bryant, and you guys, wow, this is interesting. Okay, so Crucial PG in the chat, he said Curry over Magic on the defense. Wow, he thinks Curry is a better defender than Magic, and I somewhat could see that just because, like, Curry, like, he's really good at, like, steals and whatnot, but at the same time, most of the time, like, he doesn't guard ball, and he ends up guarding, like, the corner. So I wouldn't really put, Crucial BG in this said in the chat, Magic couldn't guard a tree. That's a little disrespectful. I'm not even gonna lie. But, I mean, given how, like, obviously, like, defense, like, back then, a lot of people say it was tougher, but the average defender, like, back then, and, like, the average player back then is not better than the average player now. So I could see, like, an argument for that, but at the same time, it's a little bit iffy because, like, you know, Magic's frame and his height, it makes it a lot more difficult for a lot of the shorter guards to be able to do anything. And, like, I understand your point where, like, he literally, like, he couldn't guard he wasn't that good on the defensive end as people say he was, but again, like, that, like, you'd rather, it's an argument between height, like, over someone who doesn't really have that much height. And obviously you'd rather have somebody that's a little bit taller defending a point guard because, like, it'll disrupt the point guard a lot more. And moving on to Kobe Bryant, you guys know that I have a very strong opinion towards Kobe Bryant. He's one of my favorite basketball players ever, but I am not one of those delusional Kobe fans that's going to say that he was better than Michael Jordan. Because Kobe, like, he had his game, like, literally molded after Michael Jordan. And while he was the closest thing to Michael Jordan, like, he wouldn't have been where he was without him. That's one. And two, Michael Jordan also shot a lot more efficiently, not from three than Kobe, but he shot a lot more efficiently than Jordan. He's a better finisher around the rim. Like, his name is Air Jordan, for Christ's sakes. Like, obviously, Jordan is the better shooting guard between the two. And Crucial PG has something else to say in the chat. NBA 2K clouds people's minds on Magic's defense. Honestly, like, I do have to agree with that because I don't really talk about 2K that much, obviously, but on 2K, Magic's ratings, they're really high on in terms of defense. And a lot of people that watch basketball, like, they obviously play NBA 2K. So when they see that Magic's defense was good, has good ratings in the game, they immediately assume that, like, oh, he must have been a great defender back in the day. But that's not true at all. And a lot of the stats that 2K puts in are a little bit skewed. Like, for example, they give Tim Duncan a very high 3-point rating. Last time I checked, Tim Duncan was not that good of a shooter. Last time I checked, like, from three at least. Like, he could shoot a little bit from three, but he wasn't like a laser 3-point shooter like how in the game he is and whatnot. So obviously, like, you know, 2K, like, it clouds a lot of people's perceptions on, like, a lot of basketball and a lot of takes in basketball. So I definitely agree with that in terms of overhyping Magic's defense. And Kevin Durant is, like, the only player that I could really respect being in the lineup. And even then, I don't respect Kevin Durant being in the lineup because where's LeBron? Like, where's LeBron? He's not there. The top 2 players in NBA history aren't on your all-time list. Like, are you serious? Like, and Dirk Nowitzki. You want to talk about someone who couldn't guard a tree. Dirk Nowitzki. It was incredibly slow on his feet, and he was LeBron or okay. There's something more in the chat. I'll go ahead and I'll talk about that a little bit. But after, I just want to talk about Dirk for a little bit. Dirk, again, like, I talked about how the lineup isn't second, like, is literally, like, the second best players at each position. Dirk Nowitzki, like, he's the second best power forward ever. I'm surprised he didn't put Tim Duncan on this list as one of the better, like, like, on this lineup, because Tim Duncan is by far a better power forward than Dirk. And Shaq in the lineup, obviously, like, I think Shaq in the lineup, definitely, like, without a doubt, the best player in that lineup, and with how dominant he was. And I have somebody, Crucial PG asked me a question in the chat, LeBron or Larry Legend? Obviously, I'm going to pick LeBron James, like, it's a no-brainer there. And there's no argument for LeBron not being over Larry Bird at this point. So, LeBron, easily. And so, other than that, the starting lineup is, like, it's a little bit weak. So, I don't really like it. I really don't like it. Just because of, like, I like Kobe in the lineup, obviously. But at the same time, oh, you're saying, over KD. Oh, okay, that's my part. Crucial PG, like, he, instead of saying, like, LeBron or Larry, like, he wasn't asking me that question. He was saying that instead of Kevin Durant in the lineup, it should have been either Larry Bird or LeBron James. And honestly, yes, I can get by that. I think Larry Bird's, like, career is definitely, like, without a doubt one of the best. And given how, like, I understand, like, his teams were ridiculously stacked, but I mean, he won the MVP like 3 straight years. So it's like, it's really difficult to compete against someone with that kind of resume. And the fact that his defense was also pretty good and his playmaking was also pretty good as well. But obviously, like, a lot of people, like, they have a strong opinion towards KD because KD is super tall and he can hit a jump shot over any defender, which is true. But his postseason resume and his playoff career, aside from Golden State, is incredibly lacking, and I feel like Larry Bird definitely has that edge over him. That's just my personal opinion, though. And my starting five, it's a little bit odd, honestly. My starting five is a little bit, I will give it that, it's a little bit weird, but I'll give you my reasonings for why I have the starting five the way I do. And it's not like entirely decisive, because, like, I am a little bit indecisive on, like, who I'd want on my team. But for point guard, LeBron James, you knew that was coming. Shooting guard, Kobe Bryant. Small forward, MJ. Power forward is between, actually, you know what? Yeah. Power forward is going to be between, like, KD or Kawhi Leonard. One of those two. I'm still not entirely sure who I would put in that starting lineup, but it's between Kawhi and Kevin Durant. And for center, it's between Shaq and Tim Duncan. And it really depends on, like, the reason why, like, I flip-flop between those two is because, like, it depends on, like, the lineup that I'd want to run. So Crucial PG says something in the chat. He said, as a Clippers fan, you don't want Kawhi at the power forward. He's much better at the 3. But no, like, this is the thing. Like, this is what I'm going to explain here. So LeBron James is multi-position. He can play 1 through 5, meaning he can guard the 1 through 5, and you can put him anywhere while at the same time having him run the point guard and bring the ball up. He could be the power forward while Kawhi is the small forward, and Kobe and Michael Jordan are the guards. Like, and they can still have that really good lineup that and a very solid defensive lineup. And depending on which center, like, I'm still unsure of, like, which center I'd want, because Tim Duncan, like, he has the defense and he also has the spacing, which I think will open up a lot of things for every single one of these players in the lineup, as opposed to having Shaq in the lineup. But at the same time, if you have Shaq in the lineup, there's literally nothing that anybody can do to guard him. So it's a little bit, it's a flip-flop between, like, Tim Duncan and Shaq, in my personal opinion. And Crucial PG also had something to say in the chat. He said no Kareem at the 5. And yeah, like, no Kareem at the 5. Like, I understand that Kareem is by far, he's probably, like, he's the best center in NBA history. Well, I'll give him that. Best center in NBA history. But I personally just don't think he will mesh well in the lineup. And that's why I have Tim Duncan in that lineup, because you also have to like create, well, it can't just be like a team full of like the best players at each position. They all have to like be able to help each other, and they all have to like mesh well with each other. And part of that is like I put Kobe and like MJ there. Like while they both might be like super selfish, they aren't entirely selfish. Like they were only selfish because they felt that their team was unreliable because they weren't putting in the work like they were putting in the work, if that makes sense. At least that's with Kobe's case. Kobe did not like relying on his teammates because he saw them in practice. He saw them day in and day out and how seriously they were taking the game. And the fact that they weren't taking it as seriously as him, I mean, come on, waking up at 3 o'clock to go to the gym, obviously, like, his opinions are going to sour and he's going to be selfish. But if you put both of those players on a team with all of the great players that all have the dedication and they all have that work ethic, then it's only going to speak good news. And like we've seen Kobe like on Team USA be able to play with other great players and be able to mesh well. Like Kobe doesn't have a problem not being the scorer, because there was this one time on Team USA where he was talking to, like, he was saying that he was going to impress Coach K. He was very passive on the offensive side of the ball, and he wasn't shooting. He was playing defense, and he was showing like his dominance like through his defense. And Coach K got upset. It was like, yeah, I get that you're great at defense, but can you shoot the ball? And that was like, Kobe said that was the first player that told him to shoot the ball, like the first coach that told him shoot the ball more. And it's honestly pretty funny. But Crucial PG had more to say in the chat. Kobe gonna want Shaq. Kobe gonna want to trade Shaq. Honestly, like, that's part of the reason why I don't want Shaq in that lineup, because the Kobe and Shaq beef between each other. And I will say that in the beginning of Kobe's career, yes, Kobe was selfish. He was playing incredibly selfish. And the starting lineup that, with Shaq in the starting lineup and like going to the finals, Kobe wanted a finals MVP. And it was clear cut that he wanted to be the player to win the series and be the best player on the championship team. And he ended up shot chucking his way into doing that, and that's how they ended up losing in 2004. And I will admit, back early on, yes, Kobe was selfish. And like, he's young. I don't really expect, like, what do you expect from a young player? Like, obviously they're going to try to be selfish and try to get all the glory, especially after being like second fiddled to somebody who doesn't even put in as much work as you do, who's just naturally great at the game. Like, obviously that would upset anyone who like wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning and sees Shaq out partying, but like, it doesn't matter because Shaq is so dominant that he can still get you 30. And like, obviously it would rub him the wrong way. And that's why I would rather like have someone like Tim Duncan in that lineup, where like Tim Duncan doesn't really say much. He's like straight as an arrow. And like winning basketball, and he doesn't care about his own numbers. Winning basketball, and I like players that have that mindset. And to be able to pair him up with the spacing like that he gives, because he can shoot the mid range, so he can also provide spacing. It allows Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Kawhi Leonard, and LeBron, who are all phenomenal finishers, to be able to finish without a problem. And I honestly think that lineup, not only is it great offensively, but it's also incredibly balanced on the defensive side of the ball, because you have Kobe Bryant at the 1, you have Michael Jordan at the 2, you have Kawhi at the 3, you have LeBron at the 4. All of those players can switch on every single screen, and all of them can play elite defense. And we have a lot more things. Crucial has a lot more to say in the chat. Crucial PG says, Tim is one of my favorites all time just because people don't talk about how great he was. Anchored that defense for pretty much his entire career. Yes, like that's exactly why I'd want. And Tim Duncan, like, he's also relatively quick on his feet, and he's an incredible rim protector. And I would like to have that player in the starting lineup. And he's also flip-flop between like power forward and center going into his career, so he can totally play the 5. He is by far the he has an argument for being one of the best centers of all time if you put him at that 5. But like a lot of people would put him at the 4 just because like he's clear cut the best power forward if you put him at the 4. And with that in mind, I would have that as my starting lineup. It would be Kobe, MJ, either Kawhi or KD, LeBron, and Tim Duncan. And LeBron would bring the ball up and be that point guard. Like you don't need a point guard when you have LeBron James, because LeBron James has the ability to be a point guard. We've seen it before, and he's always going to make the right play. And like I understand like LeBron is a great scorer, but if he's surrounded by great scorers, like he's obviously going to give them the ball and he's going to allow them to do what they do best. And I really think that lineup would actually be super unstoppable. I think that lineup is unstoppable because what answer can you give to either of those players on both sides of the ball? What answer can you give to them? And Crucial PG had something else to say in the chat. He actually was listed at center for a longer part of his career than he was at power forward. Yes, exactly. It's just like we put him at the power forward because like he's clear cut the best power forward, and I think it's more of like a notoriety thing, because it's like I don't know, honestly, like I don't know why we put him at the power forward instead of putting him at center. I think maybe because like there's already been a lot of great centers. Putting Tim Duncan in that conversation with the centers just makes the argument even more difficult on who are the best centers in NBA history. So I think putting him at power forward just makes it a lot easier. And even then, like a lot of people still forget about Tim Duncan, given how like he wasn't really like, I don't want to say he wasn't popular, but like he didn't really say much. Again, straight as an arrow. He didn't really say much. So, and I'm not even going to lie, we haven't really heard from him since his retirement, like from the Spurs. Like, I mean, I personally don't really see him on the media all that much. I usually only see him when like he does something egregious and whatnot. But with that, and with that great conversation, we are out of time for the 4th segment. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and as always, before I end this segment, I'd like to remind everybody, please go ahead and check the link to get your comments recognized. And the link is, hold on, I'm just looking for it right now. It's displayed below the ticker, and it's also in the link of every single show of the show. That is gsmcpodcast.net. And you just go to that just so you can get your comments recognized. And that is it for the show. Once again, I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't